Where am I now? This is the head of the Snap River. And it's not the warmest water yet. So the word has it on the street is, I've had numerous people have emailed in and said, if you want proof, you want experience, all you gotta do is walk the Snap River. There you go. So here we are. We're at the head of the Snap River. There's a major Robertson Creek fish hatchery is just over there somewhere. Nobody's around here at all. Have I ever been here? No. Here we go. It's a good place to get some voices heard, right? It's titled, Not Seen, but an Encounter Still, plus someone else's story. Hi Steve, it's Barb again. Yes, you can use my name. Thanks for all you do. You make others who get called crazy feel sane. You give us a safe place to tell our stories. My cousin and her husband watch your videos. They call you the Indigenous man because you're always asking First Nations people to tell the stories. She heard you read my email and thought it was cool. I asked if she thought I was crazy and she said that she didn't because she knows what I can do. She has seen and heard many things around me. I've given her answers to questions before she asks it. I used to channel her son after he passed. Once the word rutabaga got stuck in my head before I went to have lunch with her. When I told her about it, she told me that she had said that if I was for real, I should say the word rutabaga that day. We still laugh about that. That's interesting. In my last email, I told you of some of the messages one of the Sabe wanted passed on. I did not tell you of the most recent encounter in that last email. A few years ago, I was walking on an ATV trail near a provincial park in BC. Even though I was walking into an area where there were no houses and no electricity, I felt as if I was standing next to a transformer. I've told you before that I can hear electricity. For me, it's a constant buzz, and I love going away from homes and people to give my ears and mind a break from it. This particular day, I could hear the electricity the whole time. I knew I was being followed before I stepped over the tree that lay across the path. When I stepped over the tree, I thought about your channel and the encounters where people had stepped over the blockage on the path. I took a deep breath and continued on, thinking it was my friend. When I said a silent hello to her, she told me it wasn't her. I came to a young tree that had made an arc along the path. It looked interesting to me, so I stopped to take a picture of my phone. In my mind, I heard a voice tell me not to take a picture of him. It reminded me of a small child, say around 5 or so. I don't know why I got that impression, but still, it was what I thought. He was curious about me. I continued to follow my path, enjoy nature. I love the smell of cedar trees. As I was coming to a bend in the trail, I had that feeling that danger lay ahead. I got the distinct feeling that I shouldn't go any further. Since I've had this feeling before and found out later that there was a rattlesnake on the trail I would have stepped on, I just chalked it up to something like that. I said aloud, I mean no harm, and I'm just enjoying nature. The child's voice said that it was his dad around the bend, and he didn't trust humans. He told me that not all of them are kind. I repeated that I mean no harm. I heard a distinct adult male voice in my head telling me it was okay for me to continue as long as I meant no harm. I got the feeling that I would actually see him if I did walk around the corner. I said aloud that we'd meet another day. I turned around and walked back to my car. I looked at my watch. I'd been on the trail for over an hour, yet it took me only 5 or so minutes to get back to my car. I didn't walk any faster out of there, and I did into the forest. The next story wasn't my encounter, but it was about an encounter. I used to run a fishing supply store in a small town. One day a man came in. He looked deathly pale. He didn't look around at anything I had in the store. He waited for the customers to leave, and then he asked if anyone had seen anything strange in the area where I'd had my encounter. This is about 2 years before I was on this trail. I asked him what he meant. He told me that he and his dog were walking one of the trails and saw a brown animal walk between 2 trees and disappear. I asked if it was a bear. He said that unless a bear walks on 2 legs and can disappear behind a tree there's only 6 inches around, it wasn't a bear. I said very nonchalantly, "Oh, maybe it was a Sasquatch." He seemed relaxed, and he said, "That's what I thought. I just didn't know they could disappear into thin air." He told me it walked between 2 small trees in a little clearing. When it reached the second tree, it disappeared behind it. Color returned to his face, and he walked out without another word. Keep up the good work getting these stories out. I've been told that 2025 is going to be an important year for us. For us all. Let's hope the truth comes up before that. Sincerely, Barb Hendrickson. Barb, appreciate you. Absolutely appreciate that share. And I'm glad you came forward to those, what's normally considered an alarming details, right? A little tired of people not sharing all the details. I don't think there's any fish in here yet. There's probably some summer on steelhead, some trout, but those big spring salmon will be coming up the end of the month. September long weekend, rain permitting, I think. Nothing's chucking any rocks at me, and I hope it doesn't happen. All right. There's another one. Why did I share my experience? This is the title of this one. Wherever you are when you read this, Steve, I pray an angel to you for protection and to heighten your senses. There were 3 reasons why I needed to share my experiences. First, I wanted to bring hope to anyone struggling by saying the truth that the living Father and Jesus are real. Second, I was hoping by sharing my experiences, it would help someone and stop the vivid dreams I was having. It worked for me, I only had one dream of them since I shared. Then with my last experience with the giant wolf of our trap line, I was hoping someone could help me because I'm still trying to understand how or why they would warn me about the wolf before it happened. I'm searching. I just went through a bunch of testing with the Glen Rose Hospital in Edmonton area. They did an MRI of my brain as well. I did this all myself. No one made me. I can say this for sure, Steve. Since I found your channel and was able to finally get everything out and my life has improved and continues to improve for this, I'm forever thankful. Barry Allen Ferguson. Barry, good news. I can't remember your original email. I'm sure I could probably dig it up though. But that's good news, man. Good news. Hey, listen, I'm going to move you guys. The sun's driving me nuts. See if I can find somewhere else cool for us to go see. Oh. Alright, exposure's kind of darkened up, but oh well. At least you got that river behind me, which I think is pretty cool. I'm way down the bottom of the Sumas River now. Up where I was earlier, I went bombing around and there just wasn't any more access to the river there. And it's just sun beating down and nowhere with a cool view. It's another reason why it frustrates me being here in a way. Some of the mountain places I used to go to in minutes, right? I will again, just not right now. Anyways, let's carry on with hearing some voices, alright? Unheard emails, and I think he walked right past a Sabe about 20 feet to your left. Why does that not surprise me? Steve, hey my friend, I was recently watching your This Is How I Start Hunting video 2022. I know you said you really don't care about those close calls, but I just wanted to keep you informed since you will most likely be going back to retrieve those cameras. Alright, that'll be this spring when I was way up north. At timestamp 9:05 to 9:09, you'll notice a fallen tree off to your left. At the root ball of the tree, it appears that a Sabe is crouching down behind it and watching you pass. The conical head is what sold me on it, and then in frame 9:08, it looked as though you could make out the face. Alright, so that is a video called This Is How I Start Hunting Video 2022. It's probably on the Hat Hunt channel, I'm guessing, right? I'll check it out when I get home, man. Not that I really want to see that. I love your channel and have much respect for what you do. I've learned so much about the outdoors and have now recalled at least 5 experiences of my own that listening to others on your channel has allowed me to make sense of. I emailed you twice last year, but I think they were never read because I've really tried to listen to every video you post. One was titled, A Mother's Day I'll Never Forget. Then I sent another one about an experience at Cooper Lake in East Texas. I know how things can get lost in the shuffle about the one experience from the lake. I was really curious if any other viewers had any experience. To my knowledge, I have not heard of a Sabe being in a bush over the water. I sent my stories in February 21 and again in April, May with another story. I think Cooper Lake was the later story I sent to you in April or May of 2021. If you get a chance to check it, great. If not, I completely understand. Keep doing what you do, brother, and be safe out there. Brian Reeves, Huntsville, Alabama. Please feel free to use my name and my locations. Got you, Brian. Thanks, man. This is what I'm going to do right now. In my notes, I'm going to go to the very top of the list and write down your name. Dash search it. There we go. All right. Got you on the top of the list to search once I get back. I'll find it. Now, interesting photos. I want to share these interesting photos that I took while on a hike in Northern California. I wear a size 12 shoe for reference. I know it's not much, but I did find it interesting that there is an imprint of what looks like a foot in solid rock. It's pretty neat. All right, let me see if this will work out here. I don't know. And there's that. What else do you got here? There's another one. Close up. It's kind of different, isn't it? I had some friendly people in Hudson Hope haul me home and show me a rock they had of a handprint in it. Some universities wanted to buy it off them and they refused to sell it. That is definitely a footprint looking mark, isn't it? Thanks for the share, man. All right, here comes another one. Sasquatch, Boy Scout, freak out, camp out. Hey Steve, hope you're doing well. You have my permission to read this verbatim, including my name and information. I'm at the age where I don't give a shit what people think of me anymore. Funny how age has a tendency to do that to us, lol. No doubt, especially with the shit show going on today. Quickly before I get to my story, I just want to give a little background on my efforts to research Bigfoot, Sasquatch, forest giants, etc. online over the past 5 or so years. I watched the TV shows, including the one with the guy named Bobo, and realized that those guys have no clue how to find their own ass with both hands, much less a Bigfoot. They should rename that show to Finding Bullshit. I have sorted through countless hours of video evidence on YouTube, as well as other sources. I went as far as publishing my encounter on the BSRO website, but to no avail. I never received a response, and they never posted my sighting in their database. That was 2 years ago, so those guys are useless. I was, however, fortunate enough to find a guy that films forest giants in daylight, hours out in the southern Florida swamps on a regular basis. Since 2015, this guy's a real deal. I also found another guy that analyzes audio and video clips from the internet to either verify or debunk them, and does so from a neutral and unbiased perspective. And last but not least, you with your no bullshit approach to people's encounters, and a pulpit from which people can tell their stories to the masses, who may also find the courage to share and who actually care enough to listen and believe. I'm very grateful that you've had the balls to put yourself out there and start this channel/community. On my story. Okay, thanks, man. Appreciate it. My name is Mike Hurst. I'm 50 years old and I grew up in a small suburban town called Deer Park, Texas. It was located on the southeast side of Houston, Texas. It was the summer of '85 and I was 13 years old at the time. I took a road trip from my Boy Scouts of America troop to Enchanted Rock State Park in central Texas to camp out and rappel down some cliffs for the weekend. The first day we were there, after setting up camp, we went rappelling off of a 300-foot cliff face made of solid granite, and then hiked through some natural caverns. Near the end of the day, while walking back to camp, we noticed a couple of nature trails just off the main park road. We asked if we could hike the trails, but the scoutmaster told us that we weren't going to have time to explore those trails on this trip. The second night we were there, 4 of us had decided to sneak out and explore those trails after the scoutmaster went to sleep. Around 2 a.m., we rallied on the road outside of camp. We headed out and began walking to the trails. We followed the park main road, which stretched around the outskirts of the park, to the nature trails. We had a couple of flashlights between us. The road we were on was about 14 feet wide, made of asphalt. There was a full moon that night, so we could see fairly well once we got away from the camp lights and our eyes adjusted to the darkness. We're walking shoulder to shoulder down this road, just shooting the shit and joking around as young boys do. About 15 minutes or so after we left camp and before we could reach the trails, we were suddenly startled by rustling and movement from the brush on top of the hill to our left. We saw 3 deer crash through the bushes and run down the hill and scurry frantically across the road about 40 feet in front of us from left to right. We heard louder popping and cracking noises and crashing sounds on top of that same hill to the left. We all froze in place. A sense of dread came over me and the hairs on my neck stood on end. At that moment, a dark figure broke through the brush line, sprinted down the hill, and appeared to be chasing the deer. Crossed the road in front of us in one stride like it was nothing. It was running on 2 feet, but after crossing the road, it crouched down on all fours and seemed to gain more speed when it did. Just before it disappeared into the brush to our right, it had to be at least 9 feet tall, and its upper torso area I estimate to be 4 to 5 feet across the shoulders. It also had a very short neck that appeared to be sunken into its shoulders, and massive muscles could be seen through the thin dark body hair which was shimmering in the direct moonlight. Its muscular build and definition were impressive to say the least, and would make any bodybuilder jealous. His head was massive and conical at the top. If I were to guess, I would say it had to weigh about 800 pounds or more. So, a decent sized bull moose size. A few seconds later, it passed in front of us. We all noticed an ungodly pungent smell, like a combination of feces, urine, and garbage. Like I'd smelled at the garbage dump in the past. We all panicked and sprinted full speed back toward camp, constantly checking over our shoulders to see if maybe it had decided to follow us. We all stopped just short of camp to gain our composure, catch our breath, and discuss what we had just witnessed. We all agreed not to tell anybody for fear of getting in trouble for sneaking out, or that nobody would believe us and accuse us of making up the story for attention. We broke camp about 8 a.m. that morning and headed home. We never talked about it again and lost touch with each other shortly after the incident. Right on cue. I've only told a couple people about this incident over the years for fear of being ridiculed. As I mentioned before, I finally don't give a shit what people think of me anymore, but I'm very appreciative for you and your channel because I know that my experience will not fall on deaf ears. Excuse me. No, it won't. Thank you for taking the time to read this. I've bottled up those memories for too long. I really and truly enjoy your channel and hearing other stories who have had similar experiences. When it comes to encountering forest giants, you just don't know until you know. Once you do know, then what? LOL. No shit. Any encounter with one of these forest giants will change a person forever. God bless and keep on keeping on, brother. Sincerely, Mike Hurst. Got you, man. Got your back. Welcome to the club. Welcome to the club. I have to make one of those damn t-shirts saying that, right? Welcome to the club. Alright, so chances are by now, at this stage of the game, some of the people that are with you are watching this channel. And if you are, obviously it's a safe place to share your shit. Alright, so do it. Don't be a pussy. Share your shit. You're in a safe place. And everybody's got your back here, alright? Everybody's got your back. The moment you do not care what any human being thinks is the moment your life starts. And that is a fact, alright? Don't be scared. Switchback Trailhead Part 2, questions answered. Steve, Part 2, my questions answered. I wrote about our encounter last summer in the Olympic National Forest a little bit ago, and how we were pushed out of our camp area. Well, I went back to that lake area last month. I wanted to understand the dynamics of what I'd call a family of forest people and why we were pushed out. I understand the area was probably home for them. We were intruding, and that would have annoyed me if strangers settled in my front yard. The way we were pushed down the mountain stuck with me. It was deliberate, well organized, not violent in any way. My friends thought about all the little things they remember, each writing it down. Odd thing was that nobody remembered the same actions, i.e., one heard one thing while the other didn't. Been there. As I packed my camping gear, my thoughts were on How was that possible? How could we all share the same space in the woods yet not experience the same thing? I arrived at the trailhead early on Friday. I'd planned on a one-night stay since the weather was not favorable for 2 nights. I expected these creatures to recognize me right away since I wore the same clothes, hat and backpack I had when we were there last. 30 minutes into the hike to the lake, the forest was quiet. Birds were singing. 2 black-tailed deer walked across the trail ahead of me, but no other creature came across my eyes. Excuse me. Settling the campsite near the lake edge, I built a fire, put up my tent, took out my frying pan, and made dinner. All of a sudden, at the north end of the lake, what must have been a good-sized rock splashed the water some 30 yards from me. I'll admit, my body almost sucked up into a little mush ball. For a second, I couldn't think. I just stood up and looked at the tree line for anyone or anything that threw that rock. Nothing. I didn't see a thing. As daylight faded, I stoked the fire, bringing it to a roar. It was at that moment I saw 4 sets of eyes peering at me from the tree line across the lake. 2 sets were red, about 9 to 8 feet off the ground. 1 set was blue-green, about 7 foot high, and the last set was yellow, only about 4 feet off the ground. I could hear walking. A few branches breaking, but not much more. I stood up, greeted them openly, asking if they remembered me. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but I remember how you said, "I tell them I'm here to hunt and leave me alone as I'll leave you alone." I thought, what the hell, I'll try that. I said, "I'm here to camp overnight because I wanted to see you." Feeling a bit freaked, a little crazy, I looked down at the fire for a second, looked back up, and they're all gone. I'm laying there at 11:30 at night. Hold on. I'm laying there at 11:30 at night, head spinning with thoughts of busting out of there when I was overcome with an overwhelming feeling of peace. My head spin was replaced by the thought of family and peace. I fell asleep soon after. I woke at almost 8 a.m., fully rested. There was enough fire to restore with the last of the dry wood I collected. Ate breakfast, packed, and headed down the trail to my SUV. As I looked across the lake, it was clear this was home to them. I was followed down the mountain, but this time no growling, screaming, or rock throwing. It felt like it was an escort and not a push-out. At the SUV, I did manage to see the big male, I assume, shadowed. He was about 12 feet tall and 25 yards into the woodline. As we stared at each other for a few seconds, it simply vanished. Again, another person. I guess I was lucky I didn't piss them off. I felt like I was okay to be there, and then they didn't seem to mind either. This answered every question I had. Speaking for myself, I understand they're yet another creature trying to live in peace. Hope this helps answer questions, Steve. Sincerely, Thomas. It's going to help answer a question for somebody, Thomas, without a doubt. Without a doubt. It's always good to hear the more not so stressful experiences, right? And at least those experiences are definitely outnumbering, absolute alarming experiences, that's for sure. Thank God. Otherwise, none of you would go in the woods ever again, right? Maybe not even me. Thanks again for sending that in. Another one. Dogman. Piezoelectricity, magnetic fields. The Dogman story was interesting. It reminded me of something that happened a while back, maybe 20 years ago. I was staying with a friend in a neighborhood I grew up with. It used to be a mix of suburbs, woods, and fields. Slowly, it filled up with more burbs and businesses. But there is a dedicated park along a historic creek that runs to a major river. I grew up hiking, sometimes for miles in these areas. After leaving a bizarre and ruthless situation in a rural and forested area of the state, I returned home to check on the family at large. Things looked very strange. I went around and checked on everybody. There was a lot of walking involved. I never stayed in one spot too long and moved constantly. I felt followed. There was always a nagging feeling as if someone was remote seeing what I was doing and where I was going. I'd pick up nuances. Anyway, in the neighborhood, there was a nature trail that meandered along some railroad tracks and power lines. Those power lines were arcing. Snap, snap, crackle, pop. Normally, those power lines would have scared me, but for some reason, the sense of being followed and compromised didn't follow me under the power lines. The power lines became a place of safety where I could rest. or at least that time. However, the sound of those power lines could have been interpreted as branches breaking. If a person didn't know about them or what they were, it occurred to me after hearing a Dogman story that that is what was being described when someone said they saw 3 dogmen along a river suddenly appear. They said it sounded like lots of twigs and branches being broken. Also, if that is what it was, and what was a part of them appearing, maybe the arcing could also interfere with time-space transitions. Piezo quartz thing, and tunnel diodes, quantum stuff. I'm not too scientific, but the general idea is there. Quantum pulse wave applications. Anyway, jumping ahead. If the Earth's poles reversed, I don't think it would be a minor coincidence. Some of these articles about it sounded like 12-year-old adults that have no idea what it would take for people to survive a major crust displacement and think things would carry on without much change. Basically, what it sounds like is that the unstable magnetic core might be making what I would loosely describe as dimensional transference possible, and that yes, there are pockets of transfer, overlaying events in areas that don't interact. The theory that missing people are taking their clothes off from hypothermia, I think, is more likely, if they are taking their clothes off at all. That they are taking things off because they are too warm. Microwave. Have you seen a map of cell tower coverage lately? Sorry about jumping in and out of topic. I know this topic is fascinating. I follow this topic. It is fascinating. And after a while, I realize I've seen things to support what other peoples are saying. Best wishes to you, Steve. I try to stay private because of stalking. Thanks. Stalking. Actually, I've actually been stalked in the past. It's kind of an odd experience. All right, thanks for that share. Gets the wheels turning. I'm not sure what email you're referring to, though. All right, let's get another one going. Then I'm gonna go back to the ranch. Rooftop encounter. Steve, recent posts about rooftop encounters prompted the vivid return of this memory from many years ago in Pennsylvania. I'm pushing 70 now, and I assure you every word is true. I hope the Hat Hunt community benefits from this. Please don't read my name as I'm old now and fear ridicule. Well, that's unfortunate. Okay, past your name. This incident is bizarre and baffling, and it's equally bizarre and baffling that my overall response at the time can only be considered aloof, almost indifferent, or exceedingly stupid. If these events were to occur now, my reaction would be less accepting and much more aggressive. Back in the early 80s, when this occurred, I had no knowledge of Savvy or Dogman. I was overworked, burned out with graduate school, emotionally on edge, and simply could not make time in my life to deal with these ongoing incredible experiences, so I didn't. I just got my first professional job, meaning I had to wear a tie and manage people, and was eager to make a good impression. And I discovered the managerial position required me to work at least 60 hours a week. Some nights, I rarely enjoy 2 consecutive days off from work. I'd jump myself. On top of that, I was taking graduate classes at a nearby university. Oh my God. Suffice to say, I was unhappy, constantly tired and cranky, overworked, underpaid, and viewed a graduate degree as a road out of this crazed, unappealing cycle. So when not working or attending classes, I studied. I was in bed, studying around 21:30 hours when the first of ongoing incidents occurred. I was living in a rural area with no neighbors within sight. I lived in a mobile home at the end of a short lane. It was secluded, inexpensive to rent, and a nice enough place for a lad my age who needed cheap, temporary digs and was eager to move up in the world. My bedroom was at the far end of the mobile home. The door to the room was closed, and the only light on was above my head as I lay propped up on the pillow studying. Without any forewarning or premonition, I heard extremely loud, heavy footsteps come bounding down the corridor toward my room. I could see the framed pictures on the wall shaking. In an instant, without any thought, I rolled off the bed, pulled my semi-automatic pistol from the nightstand, and kneeled at one side of the bed between me and the door. Leveled the pistol at the door. I guess you did. The heavy footsteps stopped just outside the door. I was badly frightened. Whoever was coming through the door was about to receive bullet wounds. I checked the clock on the nightstand and watched 5 minutes tick away. My heart was pounding. It seemed like an eternity. I knew I had to act, so I ordered whoever was outside the door to get out of my house or they would be shot. I yelled this directive in the manliest voice I could muster, and spiced things up with vulgarity that would make a salty, drunken sailor proud. Nothing. No sound of footsteps retreating. Nothing. I yelled again angrily, with greater vigor, and waited. Nothing, no sound. After about 20 minutes, I rose from my knees quietly, inched slightly toward the door, and threw it open with the pistol in hand. My heart was jumping out of my throat. I fully expected to be confronted and possibly shoot the intruder, but I saw nothing. I worked my way through the mobile home, turning on lights, checking each room and closet, and saw nothing. Both doors leading outside remained closed and blocked. Eventually, I returned to bed. Eventually, I fell asleep with the pistol under my pillow. There was little choice. I had to work the next day and classes after work. Unbelievably, this scenario repeated itself almost every night for weeks. Yet there were differences. I came to understand that whatever large, heavy thing was shaking the mobile home with its bipedal footsteps was not inside, but outside. It would bound the length of the mobile home above me at the edge of the flat roof and then presumably be gone. It's crazy. How could one of those damn things support that kind of weight, right? This occurred night after night. I never heard of any vocalization, nor did I make any effort to see what was running on top of my roof. Even though I was well armed, I was too exhausted and frightened to go out in the darkness in this remote location and confront what I began to refer to among my closest friends as the creature. I became indifferent to the creature and came to fully expect it to run the length of the mobile home each night before I drifted off to sleep. I casually spoke to my friends of the creature's presence. They smiled awkwardly. The creature became the norm. I needed sleep. My exhaustive daily routine demanded it, and I felt I had no choice but to pull the curtains closed and ignore what was happening on my roof each night. That's frickin' nuts. There were never any sounds of anything gaining rooftop access, nor were there any nearby trees with stout limbs that might allow a climber to access the roof. Nor were there any sounds of something climbing down from the roof or leaping to the ground. Whatever it was bolted the length of the roof, and that was all. I noticed over time that the thudding bipedal footsteps became somewhat more delicate. There was less violent shaking and vibration. About that time I got lucky and one of my friends suggested a sleepover. She had heard me speak of the creature, but I wasn't certain she believed the story. I had no idea how she would react when the lights were turned off and we were snuggling up and something heavy bounded across the length of the roof. The lights did go out, and the creature did not disappoint. It came dashing across the roof. She turned her head toward me and whispered, "The creature?" And that was it. No big deal. The creature was on the roof. Soon word got out in my circle that someone other than I had experienced the heavy creature sprinting across my roof that night. My closest male friends began to express great interest in this, but none offered to visit and enjoy the experience, no doubt. Gradually, over many weeks, the once weighty bipedal footsteps grew softer and lighter. Then they grew faint. Eventually, I could not hear them. Finally, I no longer thought of the creature. Finally, life took me away from that place. I realized as I write this 40 years later that my largely indifferent reaction at the time was mad, insane, illogical, driven by extreme fatigue, too much pressure to excel at work, and too much self-imposed effort to excel in graduate school. I chose to deal with the implausible, extraordinary events I could not begin to understand by simply ignoring them. I knew whatever was on my roof was bipedal, and I knew it couldn't be human. And I simply accepted it. Then I ignored it and continued on with my exhausting, mind-numbing, day-to-day grind. Thankfully, there have not been further rooftop experiences. I hope those in the How to Hunt community can benefit from this, share the same way, in some way. I hope so too, man. What a freaking crazy experience. Everybody's probably screaming, trail cameras on the roof. It probably wasn't any back then though, right? What a crazy experience. That's good that somebody else got to experience that, right? You bring some kind of comfort besides being able to share it in a safe place like here. But anyway, I'm gonna get moving. Places to go, people to see, things to do. Possibly a fishing derby to win this weekend, if I manage to get in that too. and I'm actually going to I'm getting close to starting to get all my hunting gear together. How crazy is that? Man, time is flying so absurdly fast. I'm so excited to get to that point of where I get to get all my gear out and get ready to go through it. I love that. Love it. But anyway, thanks to all the contributors today and past days, and any of you guys sitting there on the fence out there unsure, quit being unsure. Just share it. Just get it out and share that shit, all right? Share it. There's nothing else you can do with it, right? Don't keep it inside driving you bonkers. Makes you sick. We'll be back soon.